Wanted the best. You got Dave and Darren. Sorry about that. It's Dave and Darren in the morning on Real Alternative Radio, Planet 93.9. Mr. Speed, a tribute to KISS, is coming to town. They're going to be at the Adler Theatre. This is a group that has been doing this for 30 years.
Is that true?
It is true. You're about to find out more with Rich Kosak, who is in Mr. Speed. He's going to be joining us. And they're very excited to be coming to the Adler.
They should.
Because
it was the RKO.
There it is. The RKO, and that's where Kiss Alive was recorded, right?
Part of it.
I mean, there's some debate about this. When the promoter comes on and says, you wanted the best, you got the best, there's some debate whether that part was recorded here or if that was recorded in, like, Michigan. Okay. Rich is probably the guy that would know the most about this. Yes, joining us live here on the magic screen from Mr. Speed, Tribute to KISS, it's Rich Kosak. Rich, good morning.
Good morning, boys. How are we today?
We're terrific. You would be the expert on all things KISS. First of all, thanks for joining us. This is really your 30th year in this band, or the band has been together for 30 years. Have you been here for all 30 years of it?
I have. I've been here for all 31 years, actually. We just started our 31st year on the 24th of June. And that was the 31st anniversary of the very first show, June 24th, 1994.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on the timing here, but 1994 for the actual band KISS, they had not yet gotten back into the makeup and done their big kind of reunion with Ace and
No, they had not.
That hadn't happened yet.
Nope.
So when you conceived of Mr. Speed, the KISS tribute, were you guys doing the full makeup at a time when they were not?
Well, we were doing the makeup, but we weren't doing the costumes, because you have to understand, back in 1993, when we conceived this idea, and I say conceived loosely because at that point there weren't a whole lot of KISS tribute bands around the world. There were a few that were making noise. Most of them were American KISS tribute bands. There were one or two in Europe. But I actually saw an article in Metal Edge magazine about a tribute band out of Los Angeles called Cold Gin. And it had Jamie St. James from Black and Blue, had Tommy Thayer from Black and Blue, and we all know Tommy's story.
Right.
It had Chris McClernandon, I think, was the Gene, and Anthony White may have been the Paul Stanley. Saw that article and got the band together. And I should probably rewind and let you guys know that Mr. Speed, when it started, was never meant to be a band.
Explain.
It was only, I had met a guy at a record show in Pittsburgh, which is where I'm originally from. He was looking at a KISS book. I made a comment over his shoulder. We started talking. Turns out he played guitar. He was much better of a guitar player than I was. We became fast friends. And for 6 months, here's a music term, we woodshedded at his house for 6 months, just playing KISS songs on guitars. That was it. And after 6 months, we thought to ourselves, you know what? The guitars sound pretty good. What do you think about trying to get a bass player and a drummer? And that was how it started. So originally, it was just supposed to be two guys playing KISS songs onto a cassette tape.
So years later, but then how do you find everything you need to make it look like a real KISS show? I mean, where do you find this stuff?
You have to use a lot of resources. Oh, obviously, over 31 years, I've met a lot of people. I am not mechanically inclined, so I cannot build anything, but I can draw it for you. I can think of it, and I can find people. You know, money talks, suckers walk. You know, you can find anybody to do anything these days. And the interesting thing about being in a KISS band, ever since KISS put out the official Halloween costumes years ago,
right?
It's basically given any guy who knows a couple of guitar chords the balls to think that they can call themselves a KISS tribute band and go out and steal money from people and play KISS songs. That's not what we do. We have so much respect for the legend that is KISS. I've performed with guys that ex-members of the band. KISS know who we are. Thankfully, we've been invited to this KISS Army Storms Vegas event that's taking place in November for 3 days. You may have heard about that.
So this is, and the band Kiss will be performing at that venue, right? At the November show. Now they won't be in makeup, but Kiss,
No.
when they had their big Go Away festival at Madison Square Garden, that just meant that they were going away in makeup. So they've reserved the right to continue to perform.
And Rich, you portray the Paul Stanley character, right?
I do. You see that wall behind me? This is my Paul wall.
That's the Paul wall. That's awesome.
And let me just lean this way. Can you guys read that?
Autograph. Look at that. The Star Child has written it says, "To Rich,
Do me proud."
do me proud." Oh, that's awesome. He told you guys that you're the connection between the band Kiss and the fans, right?
He did. I had an angel fall to earth a couple of years ago, who remains anonymous. That's their wish. They don't want anyone to know who they are. Gifted me a meet and greet with Paul here in Cleveland at their last show in October of 23.
Okay.
So I got the chance to meet him, get some things signed, and talk to him. And I basically stood there for 15 minutes talking about Mr. Speed. And I showed him pictures of our band. I showed him pictures of himself and Jimmy Page. And I showed it to him. And I said, "Paul, you see this photo?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's Jimmy and I." And I said, "You see this? This is you and I right now for me."
Right.
And, he kind of looked at me and, when he was trying to walk away at the end of our meet and greet, I stopped him and I said, "I need to tell you something. I need to tell you that the connection between us and our fans is real." And he turned around and he extended his hand to me and he said, you are the connection between us and the fans."
Did you have any trepidation about how that interaction would work? Because I would be consumed with, what if he says, "Well, we don't care for tribute bands," or "You guys are ripping us off," or, I mean, were you nervous at all?
No, I was extremely nervous. I've met Paul probably 20 times in my life, maybe a few more than 20 times in my life. And I had said to him, "I understand you don't really care for Kiss tribute bands." And he looked at me and he said, "It's not that." He says, "I've just never seen a good me." So I said, have you ever seen me?" And he said, "Only in photos." And he goes, "Are you on YouTube?" And I said, "Yeah, Paul, but you know how that works. Anybody that comes, to see us perform live, standing there with a shaky camera or whatever, is going to put that on YouTube for the world to see."
Right.
He goes, "I'm going to check you out tonight." So I don't know whether he ever did or he didn't. You got to remember one thing. Kiss are the masters of hype. They can sell you anything.
Right.
So when you're doing a show, obviously the fans that come to see you are going to want to hear the hits. They're going to want to know that, time-tested stuff. Now, if that was not the case, if you were allowed a little bit of wiggle room, what are a couple songs from the Kiss catalog that you would like to throw out there that you just really kind of can't?
Well, since the inception of Mr. Speed, we've always been the Kiss tribute band that's prided itself on playing the vault tracks or the rare track. That's always been our MO. Okay. So we've always put those songs into the show. So I'll give you, for instance, let's do something like "Talk to Me" off of Unmasked. Let's do "She's So European" off of Unmasked.
Okay, so then you are doing those sort of things.
Well, I mean, the band is called Mr. Speed, right? That's not one of their biggest. That's on Rock and Roll Over, right? That's not like a huge.
Yeah, we're not a thrash. We're not a thrash metal band. The name would kind of lean that way, right?
Well, when you name yourself Mr. Speed off of that record, I mean, that, again, you could have, you're not calling yourselves Detroit Rock City or Crazy Crazy Nights or something. Apologies if those are actual Kiss tribute bands. Those seems like more obvious names. When you call yourself Mr. Speed, it's almost like you're telling the fans, "Hey, we're legit. Like, we're going to go deeper than maybe you would see at a bar on a Friday night." Am I onto something there, Rick?
Man, you are dead on. Dead on. The reason that we chose the name was because at that time, again in '93, there were only, I'm saying 5, 7 Kiss tribute bands, and they all took real popular song titles for their names, which, was smart. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to be left of center. We wanted, if you were a really, really big Kiss fan and you heard Mr. Speed, you would know that we were a Kiss tribute band. But I think it's also been, no pun intended, the kiss of death too, because I think we have a moniker, Mr. Speed, a night of Kiss.
Right.
And for a long time, we didn't do that because we just thought, well, we're called Mr. Speed. We've got the Kiss S in the word speed, so everybody should be able to pick up on it if you're smart enough. But yeah, my wife and I met the band in Chicago in 2000 on the farewell tour. And Tommy Thayer at the time was their road manager. When we were backstage, Tommy introduced me to Paul and said, "This is Rich from the Kiss tribute band, Mr. Speed." And he looked at me and he said, "Really cool song to name your band after."
Mm-hmm.
So I've had for 25 years the only stamp of validation that I need from the guy who wrote the song himself to call our band what I called it.
We've been lucky enough to have Paul Stanley on the show. We've been lucky enough to have Gene Simmons on the show. It seems like all of your interactions have been with Paul, but you've met with other members of the band, right?
Oh,
You are the Paul, yeah?
Yeah, I'm the Paul and Mr. Speed. I've met every member of KISS, living or past.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them many, many times, some of them once or twice. I've had really amazing experiences with a lot of these people. I've had some really horrific experiences with some of these people, but they're people. They're humans.
Like every time you meet Ace Frehley, he's like the goldfish in the swimming bowl. He's never met you before, or what's gone wrong?
With Ace, no, actually, one of my top 5 Mr. Speed memories was performing "Shock Me" in Myrtle Beach in 2007 with him at the first anniversary of the KISS Coffee House that is no longer.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was surreal.
You're 30 years in on this, so this is not the sort of thing you're going to do. But if you were to, okay, we're gonna knock Mr. Speed on the head, and I'm going to now do a new tribute or a new dedication band. Who would you tribute, or who would you dedicate?
The Commodores.
Wow!
Nice.
Nobody saw that
Nice.
answer coming.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Could you imagine that? Could you
they were
imagine
not-
a white guy, could you imagine a white guy playing in the Commodore tribute band?
I mean,
No, they were the first band I ever saw live on July 28th, 1978.
we play the Faith No More cover of Easy, and
Yeah.
I think you could pull it off. Why
I'm
not?
telling you, I've been to Tuskegee, Alabama. I've been to their rehearsal space. It's like going to church for me.
I know what it's like to have a band that you just love and prize and means the world to you. I've got my own walls at home of different bands, not necessarily KISS, although I've always enjoyed KISS. But what is it about that band that means so much to you that you get together with a guy and play the guitar, and now 31 years later you're touring the country? And what is it about KISS that made all of this possible?
It was the escapism. It was, I have a story probably not unlike a lot of your listeners, a lot of other fans around the world, not the most popular kid in school, trying to find his way, just trying to live day by day, through grade school and high school. I became a fan of KISS in 1976 when I saw them on the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Yes.
And
Kiss and make up.
Did your mother tell you to kiss and make up?
that's pretty good. That's pretty. If I need a soundbite, I'm calling you.
Listen, if you want me to appear on Saturday, July 19th as Paul Lynde, I'll be happy to do it.
That's awesome.
And I'll do Margaret Hamilton.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Only in green face.
Yeah, we may watch that every year here on the show.
Yeah,
The Halloween
a
special.
copy of that one.
It's kind of one of our personal favorites, Rich. You're right.
But
on.
let me get back to my answer real quickly.
Yeah, right.
So KISS gave me an escapism where it was so theatrical and it was so over the top and it was so exciting. It wasn't, as they always say, just 4 or 5 guys standing around on stage playing their instruments. There was more to it. And the visual appeal, because I have artistic ability, I can draw and things like that. It was interesting to put the posters on my bedroom walls. And my bedroom would drive my mom and dad crazy. It was floor to ceiling and the ceiling with posters and photos. I mean, if it was 1 inch by 1 inch, it went somewhere. It covered something, and It was just a way for me to feel good. They made me feel good. They made me feel like I could be somebody in a crowd.
You probably recognize that feeling when you're looking at the audience, because they're there to see Mr. Speed, a night of KISS, Partners in Crime Tour 2025, but they're also there to kind of see themselves as the younger version of themselves, falling in love with KISS and feeling like anything is possible and escaping from maybe situations that were not ideal. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's really cool. Let me just tell you this. The first 20 years were the grind. We made very little money.
Right.
The last 10, I've been able to go out to lunch and buy some sneakers, but it's really, really awesome to see people smiling, singing the wrong lyrics, but singing their hearts out.
Right.
Really, really, you cannot put a price on that when these people pay their hard-earned money to come and see your band, a dream that you thought of in your bedroom. And here they are 31 years later, paying whatever to come in and see your band at a famous theater, in celebration of one of the most iconic live albums of all time. I'm sorry, but you just can't put a price on that.
You'd be surprised how many people think the girl's name was Teth.
Now, do we know for certain whether that line, "You wanted the best, you got the best," was that recorded here in Davenport, or what can you tell us about that? And the theater you're playing, the Adler Theatre, which was the RKO back in the day.
I don't know if it really was done in Davenport. I know that it was a result of, I believe it was Toyota. A Toyota commercial is where they took that from, morphed it into their own. I remember their road manager at the time, J.R. Smalling, was the voice that you hear on KISS Alive.
Right.
Who do that.
And there are tracks on KISS Alive where like half the song is recorded in one theater and half is at the other, right? Don't they do a little bit of that on KISS Alive, or am I way off?
That's true. No, actually, and I just spoke to a guy here in Cleveland over the weekend who saw KISS at the Allen Theater here in Cleveland in 1974. And he actually got to meet the band on their way into the venue that day. And he told me that the only thing he carried with him was a photograph of President John F. Kennedy in his wallet.
Oh, wow.
He got to meet the band and they signed this photo. He's going to give me that photo. Now, here's the even cooler part. One of the road crew saw him getting the autographs. They came out and they took the photo from him. They dipped it in Gene's stage blood.
Oh, wow.
Now think about that. I'm 61 years old, and I'm talking to this guy on Saturday afternoon on the phone, and he's recanting these stories because they had the mobile unit outside of the theater in downtown Cleveland. Peter was pounding on the door, and the door opens up, and Paul's sitting inside listening to tracks that were recorded already for KISS Alive. And as the story goes, the line from Cleveland that was used on KISS Alive was, "And I didn't forget about you people upstairs either."
I wanted to know if he did the list. He does the list. That's fantastic.
That was apparently one of the lines taken from a Cleveland show.
Right.
That was used on KISS Alive. So,
Mr. Speed, a tribute to KISS. The show is coming to the Adler Theatre Saturday night, July the 19th. Rich Kosak from Mr. Speed. It's been great hanging out with you this morning. Keep up the good work, and we're excited for when you come to town, man.
Hey, can I tell you one more thing?
Sure.
We have done a special event t-shirt just for this show. And if you go on to our website, which is mrspeedonline.com, click on the news page, you can see that shirt, which I personally designed. And on the back is an homage to Davenport's bit of history where Gene yelled into the microphone, "Come on, Quad City."
How serious is Rich about being in a KISS tribute band? He's hawking merchandise at the end of the interview. It's the most authentic experience you could possibly have. Rich Kosak of Mr. Speed. It was great having you on, and we'll see you on Saturday, July 19th.
You dudes rock. Have a great day. Thank you for the air.
Thank you.
We're Dave and Darren.
I want to give it all to you. In the darkness, there's so much.